I'll leave time for questions at the end because there's quite a lot that we want to try and get into as much as possible. This is a very interesting subject which affects the community at large and many individual families as well. So I'm going to be giving a general introduction to genetics. I'm going to explain what are genetic disorders. Is there a mitzvah, if there's a couple who know that they have a genetic disorder, is there a mitzvah for them to bring more children if they know they're going to be carry a genetic disorder? How does one inherit a genetic disorder? How does it go to the children? Genetic disorders in the community, each community has its own problems. The most famous case is Tay-Sachs, but I'm going to show here there's a study which was made recently in the Persian community, actually here in LA, where there are certain genetic disorders which are much more common within the Persian community than other communities. Genetic testing, and then I'm going to finish off with Hashem to speak about how can a couple who know they have a genetic disorder still have healthy children. There are technological and medical ways of being able to have healthy kids, even though the parents suffer from a genetic disorder. So first of all, I would like to start off with the words of the Chazon Ish, that he talks about שאין כוח לאדם לחוקרו ולתת לו תהילה ושבח. Man does not have enough power to understand the great extent and the depth of conception and to give it praise. התוכנית של הזיווג זכר ונקבה, when a man and woman conceive a child. ומרוב ההרגל לא ירגישו בני אדם את נוראות הבורא. We some very often we don't realize the greatness which we have. We're walking and there's so many biological and physiological things going on right at this very second which we don't always appreciate. It's only when we hear about the problems then we suddenly appreciate more. So the Gemara Enida tells us שלושה שותפים יש באדם, הקדוש ברוך הוא ואביו ואמו. Three people make each person, Hashem, man and woman. Aviv Mazriah, lo ben, he gives a white part of a child. שממנו העצמות, the bones, the גידים, the sinews, ציפורניים, ונז ומוח שבראשו, ולא בן שבעין, the brain and the white part of the eye. אימו מזרעת אודם, the red part, ממנו all, you get the skin, the basa, the flesh and the hair, and the black, the pupil of the eye. והקדוש ברוך הוא נותן ברוח נשמה. So we already see that Chazal talk about different parts which the father gives them, a different part the mother gives them, obviously which HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives the neshama. So how does it work? I'm going to give an example using books. Every woman, every person normally has 36 chromosomes. We're going to call this 2 volumes of a book because this woman got 23 chromosomes from her mother and 23 from her father. The same goes for every man. Every man has 46 chromosomes, 23 which he took from his father, 23 from his mother. And the chromosomes are actually the life and the codes of what the person's going to look like, how he's going to develop, what color eyes he's going to have, what tone complexion he's going to have, what color hair he's going to have, if he's going to be a man or if he's going to be a woman. All that is written in the codes of the chromosomes. Now within the chromosomes, we're going to call them 22 chapters. It's like a recipe book in order to understand the idea a bit easier. So each book has 23. We get from our mother one book, 23, and we get from our father another book. And each chapter, we have pages which are the genes. i.e., in the chromosomes we have the genes, and in the genes we have letters. That's like the recipe. It doesn't make a difference, but the letters are given different letters, A, G, T, and C. Those are different, they represent different proteins, and those proteins give codes to build the heart. It gives a code to build the eyes. Each protein, each DNA gives a different code and a different function for each part of the body. That's how the chromosomes work. So one from the father and one from the mother. In each cell, this is a cell, the body is made out of billions of cells. We have something called a nucleus, and inside that's the DNA. These are tiny things which we only can see with a microscope. Now within the DNA, we have each cell contains all 46 chromosomes. So therefore, you could do a blood test or a saliva test or take a bit of hair, and you'll be able to see all the chromosomes in DNA of the person. However, depending on where the DNA is in the body, that's going to be the function. So that's why, let's say in the heart, so only the actual DNA working on the heart and growing the heart is going to work. Even though if you took out a cell from the heart, you're actually going to see the whole DNA of the body. It's going to work specifically where the nails are. So there, it's going to be, the codes are only going to work to grow the nails and give instructions regarding the nails. That's how it works in a very simplistic matter. And this is how it looks. This is the cell. This is the nucleus. Inside, we have the chromosome. Within the chromosome, we have the DNA structure, the genes. This is what Watson and Hicks, the triple helix, if you Nobel Prize winners, that they discovered the DNA. And within the DNA, we have these letters, these are different proteins, G, C, A, and T, and each one, the way they are ordered and the length of them, they're the codes which the body has. Now, genetics has gone really, really forward over the last 20, 30 years, but we still know nearly nothing about the human body. They used to talk about we have normal DNA and junk DNA, because there's so much they don't know what it actually represents. So again, this is another example here in the nucleus of the chromosomes. And with different tests, you can actually check either the chromosomes or the actual DNA. So basically, what happens is, at the time of conception, the actual eggs and the sperm only have 23 chromosomes, because we get one. Remember, we had 2 volumes of a book. This is what it looks like. 23 with the egg, 23 from the sperm, normally 46 when they combine together. This is what it looks like under a microscope. Here's a cell. We can see here that this is just one cell. This is exactly at the time of conception. A few hours later, about 24 hours later, it splits into 2. This is the embryo, but it doubles into 4 and into 8 until we have a Brit Milah, we have a girl, and we say Mazal Tov. Unbelievable what happens, and this just intensifies what the Chazon Ish says, that each one of us was just one tiny little cell originally, and the Niflaot HaBoreh, which we can see. This is how the cells divide. The cells keep on dividing in order to grow a fully grown human being. So, this is what a karyotype looks like. If someone's been to the doctor and he's had a problem, this is a simple blood test. If we see here, there are 22 chromosomes. They're all double. They're all in pairs. They call them number 1, 2, 3. They just number it with digits. It's not something very sophisticated with like a special name. And they go according to the order of size. And then here's our 44 chromosomes. They're called autosomes. And then we have the sex chromosomes, which is X or Y. If there's a girl, it would be X and X. This is a guy because it's X and Y. That's how it works in a very simplistic way. When a person is born, or at conception, we have one chromosome from the father, one from the mother. Even though we have 46 chromosomes, but in the sperm and in the eggs, it only has 23. So we got 23 from our mother, 23 from our father, 23 from our mother, 23 from our father. And sometimes we need both of these chromosomes to work. Sometimes it's enough, but only one of them work. We're going to see, and I'll explain in detail in a moment. Okay, so here's XY. So therefore, if someone wants to know, you can even, a woman who's pregnant, and she needs to know if it's a boy or girl, for example, and they can't see on the ultrasound, they always I'm not recommending this, but there are ways to take out from the amniotic fluid, and they can see the chromosomes under a microscope, and they'll be able to know if it's a boy or if it's a girl. However, what happens is, as life goes on, the cells always die and renew. How do they renew? They split, they divide, in order for the body to continue to function correctly. Sometimes when the cells divide, what happens is they don't divide 100%, and this is what we call mutations. There are certain problems with the cell division, and therefore even somebody who was not born with a genetic problem, sometimes he can get a genetic problem later on in life because there's a problem with the cell division. Okay? Because the whole time it could be because you're exposed to radiation or other chemicals. Sometimes it being in the sun too much that can cause skin cancer, and that's also because of the sun. It can cause a problem on the actual skin, and it causes mutations during the cell division, and that's why people can get ill, even though today genetically they're fine, but you can get genetic problems as you grow older. So, however, if the man has infected, he has a problem with a genetic problem, this is his sperm, and we put an X here to show that there's a problem, and the egg is okay, but the kid is going to have a genetic problem. However, if the mother and the father, this is what we call non-inherited, the mother and the father are actually healthy, however, the fertilized eggs suddenly becomes problematic, and the fertilized egg will have a problem. We're going to speak about this soon regarding Down syndrome. So over here on the right, this is inherited genetic problem because there was a problem either with the sperm or with the egg, and therefore the embryo, the child, is going to inherit this problem. However, there are times where the father and the mother are totally healthy, but the child, during the embryo, is going to develop a genetic disorder. I'm going to explain this in a bit more detail in a minute. So sometimes we have something which is called inherited, which you inherit from your father. Sometimes it's sporadic, which happens for no apparent reason, and sometimes it just comes, it's acquired over time. This is inherited. The father has a problem with the sperm and it goes to the child. This is sporadic. Suddenly, within the womb, we see the father and the mother are fine, and then suddenly, as the embryo develops, it's very interesting, for example, what's the difference between twins who are identical and non-identical? Twins that are identical, what happens is, do you remember when we saw the cell division? So sometimes it splits into two embryos, and they will be exactly very, very similar. This is what we call identical twins. However, even identical twins are not 100% identical. How come? They have the same DNA, because even during the 9 months of pregnancy, there are slight changes, and therefore they will be different. However, identical twins will always be either boys or girls. You cannot have identical twins, which is one of a boy and one of a girl, because the XX or XY chromosome will stay the same. However, non-identical twins, what happens is at ovulation, 2 eggs came out, and they were both fertilized, and there is no direct DNA between them, and therefore you can have one a boy, one a girl, and they'll be non-identical. So we see here from identical twins, even though they can be slightly different, and you can differentiate between them because the DNA changes as it splits in each twin as he gets older. Similarly, you can inherit, and during cell division there can be problems where you where you acquire a genetic disorder. And sometimes this can happen later on in life. That means the baby was fine, and later on in life there can be a mutation, for example in breast cancer, which I'll discuss a bit later. Now, there are 2 types of genes. 2 types of chromosomes. Not always, we have 2 chromosomes, not always do we need both of them to work. Even if there's one faulty gene, sometimes the other one is strong enough in order not for the disorder to come out. So that means, for example, in Tay-Sachs, you can be a carrier of Tay-Sachs. That means you have this faulty gene, but it's not going to actually affect you because your other gene is fine, and that's going to overpower the faulty gene. However, this is called recessive. This is very important to understand, and however, sometimes they're called dominant genes. That means even if one gene or one chromosome is problematic, that is going to cause problems for the kid, and he's going to be affected. Dominant, recessive. We're going to see these ideas soon. Now, for example, what is Down syndrome? If we see here, at chromosome 21, instead of 2 chromosomes, he has 3. This happens not inherited, but during conception. For whatever reason, the egg, instead of having 23 chromosomes, it has 24 chromosomes. It has an extra number 21, and therefore, when this kid is born, he will have Down syndrome. So we know this is a girl because it's 2 X's, but he has Down syndrome. He has 47 chromosomes. So this is not inherited. That means if a family has one child with Down syndrome, it does not mean there's a genetic problem in the family. The other brothers and sisters who are going to be born later, they can be fine. And it does not mean that they're going to have problems with the kid. It's not something which is inherited. This is the statistics. A woman in her 20s, she has about a 1 in 2,000 chance of having Down syndrome. When she's 30, it drops to 1 in 900. When she's 40, it's 1 in 100. And the older she gets into her 40s, when she's 44, 45, it's 1 in 30 chance of having a child with Down syndrome. Because what happens is the eggs are not so healthy, and they don't divide correctly, and they sometimes have an extra chromosome, and that's why the older you get, there is more chance of having a child who's going to be with some syndrome like Down syndrome. So we see here, like we showed before, she has 3 chromosome 21, and therefore she knows the child will have Down syndrome. And this is how it happens. Normally we have 23 chromosomes from the egg, 23 from the sperm, 46 from together. However, in this case, when the egg split, they only had 24. They had 24 instead of 23, and with the other 23, it's 47. That's how it basically works. There are other types of problems as well. Like, for example, some women have recurrent miscarriages, miscarriage after miscarriage, and the doctors, what they want to do, they want to check the fetus and see if he has, for example, Chromosomes 16, because that will always end up in a miscarriage. And that's why sometimes the doctors want to see and evaluate the woman because she's having recurrent miscarriages. There are different types of mutations. I'm not going to go into it so much, but very often, this is like the message. It could be on the DNA, TAG, GCC, CAG. These are the letters which are the code. Sometimes you have an incorrect code. It should be TCA and it's TAA. Sometimes you have a deletion. There's something missing. Sometimes you have an insertion. Sometimes you have a repetition. You don't even have 2 CAGs, and she has 3. Sometimes the woman will phone up and she'll say, Rabbi, I have something, we'll talk about this fragile X, and I'll ask her how many repetitions do you have. And I'll explain to that why, because that basically means that the code keeps on going on and on. It's like a broken CD, but it's always going on, and that can, the more repetitions she has, then the more chance that the child is going to have a greater problem. So we've spoken about abnormal number of chromosomes. This is like in Down syndrome where you have 47 instead of 46, or Edwards syndrome, which is another problem. Sometimes you have a deletion. That means instead of 46 chromosomes, you have 45, like in Williams syndrome. Sometimes, and this is important, I'm going to speak about this for a few minutes, about, you have on the sex chromosome, on the X or Y, there can be problems, and therefore there's going to be a problem with them regarding their sexual function, and sometimes we have a single gene mutation where it's not a problem in the actual chromosome, but within the genes there's a certain problem. So we said that most men have XY, most women have XX. Now this for example is a woman we spoke about, fragile X. So this is a lady in Israel, she's 22, 23 years old, and she doesn't have a period, she has a problem. So I asked her to send me the genetic testing, and they saw that her CGG has repetitions of 83. And that is called fragile X. It's on the X chromosome, and all those repetitions makes her infertile. Sometimes a woman might have less repetitions, so she can have kids, but the kids which she's going to have are going to have more repetitions, and her kids are going to be infertile. So there's something very interesting which is called Klinefelters. Klinefelters is 1 in 500 boys, and instead of having XY, they have XXY. They have 47. I'll show you an example here. So this is Tony's. Klinefelters, he has Y, so you'd think, and he has 47, XXY. He has an extra X chromosome. So very often, these people, these men, and this is 1 in 500 boys are born with Klinefelters. And this is something which just happens, like Downs. And very often, because they have an extra X chromosome, which is a female chromosome, sometimes they can be very feminine. Sometimes they look more like a woman, sometimes they might not grow, they don't have lots of hair, sometimes they grow over here like a woman, even though they can be quite skinny. This is called Klinefelters, and there's no question in my mind, and I'm going to speak about this because this is very important. We hear very often about gender identity, especially in the USA and in the UK, where somebody says, oh, I was born like a guy, but I feel like a girl. This is Klinefelters. Of course he's going to feel like a girl, because he has an extra Y chromosome. So very often, not always, they are genetically born like that, but this is a genetic problem. They were born wrong. They don't tell you that part. They just tell you, oh, you're born that way, so accept me, and let me go to any bathroom which I want, and you accept me as I am. That's a different issue. You were born, but with something different. There was a problem when you were born, and that they don't talk about. And that's very important, because there are people who tell me, they tell me, Rabbi, listen, I just feel different. And this can, not always, this can be one explanation, because they have this extra X chromosome, and I'm sure that many of these people who undergo operations, and I have had questions for people who have done different operations, that this is one of the actual factors, but you won't hear about this anywhere because it's politically incorrect and they don't like to speak about it.
But I mean, could he function as a man?
Yeah, he functions as a man. However, it would be difficult for him to have kids because normally he's sterile. There's not enough sperm which comes out during the mitzvah, but very often surgically you can take out the sperm and they can have kids. So these guys normally won't be able to have children. Sometimes they don't even realize. They feel fine, they're different levels of Klinefelters. And they get married, they don't have kids, so the doctors do various tests. And then one of the tests they might do is if they see that there's no sperm in the ejaculate, so what they do is they'll do a DNA test. They'll say, oh, you have Klinefelters. But there are ways of extracting sperm from the testicle.
Are there hormone therapies or are there remedies for these people?
Sorry?
Are there hormone therapies or other remedies for these people?
For this is real problematic. And like I said,
But you're saying he could get married.
He has extra hormones. It's like being.
No, but this is all the thing with gays, etc. They say I was born like this.
No. I said.
Is there anything else? Just this guy?
No. I didn't say that. It's very complex. I'm not going to go into the whole discussion now. But there are many people who are born with androgen or hormonal problems or genetic problems. Someone like this, he has an extra X chromosome. If I inject to anyone estrogen, which is a female hormone, there are going to be developments in the body. That's what they do to these people. Developments and feelings which are, you're going to feel different. These people, naturally, their body produces this at different levels. I'm not saying, again, there's no heter to do anything which is asur, and not everyone is like this. And there are other problems, psychological problems and attachment problems, which I'm not going to go, I have an actual lecture just on this subject, but I just want to bring it out that you have to understand. If they say, oh, genetically that's where you were born, it's not always true. Even if they were born that way, it doesn't mean they're allowed to do something which is prohibited. And if they were born that way, they were born with a problem. Yeah, they weren't born, genetically they were born with a problem, with a disorder. They can't have kids, they have a genetic problem. They weren't born like the other 499 boys. There's another problem, for example, Turner's syndrome. Turner's syndrome is a lady who was just born with one X. Instead of XY, just an X. These women, they never have a period. How do you hear about these women? These women, they normally, at age 16, 17, they say, Rabbi, I don't know what to do. My daughter still hasn't had a period. So I send them to the doctor, but some women are born without a uterus. Sometimes they're born without ovaries. Sometimes it could be obesity or diabetes or different issues, hormonal issues. But sometimes they're born with just one X, and that means that they have a uterus, that they won't be able to have kids. It's a serious problem because they will not be able to marry a guy without telling them that, I'm not able to have children. Most people, if they have genetic disorders, they don't realize until they get married, normally and they have kids. One of the kids has a problem, so they do genetic testing, and they see that they have a problem. Very few genetic problems, or Down syndrome, you can see that he has a problem. But someone with Turner's, you can tell because the woman, she'll get to the age of 16, 17, never had a period, and she'll be asking, the doctors why. So these are one of the few cases where you will know that they do have a certain problem before they get married. Okay, let's go on. I'm going to skip this for the moment. Okay. This is a BCRA1 or BCRA2 genes, which is the breast cancer genes. I'm just going to, in very shortly, I'll explain. Everyone has these genes. When I explained before, we have cell division. We don't want the cells to divide too rapidly. What is cancer? Cancer is when the cells keep on repeating, and growing, and they start eating up in the body until Khalila, either they treat it by killing those cells, or the person Khalila passes away. So we have inbuilt within us something to regulate the cell division. This is called BRCA1. We call it bracha 1 and bracha 2. That's going to stop the cell division. Someone who doesn't have, he has a mutation with these genes, it's not going to stop the cell division, and he can get cancer, especially even men can get breast cancer. It's rare, but there are cases like that. So in the Ashkenazi population, it's much more common. It's 1 in 40 women who have it. It's the most, more than any other community. The Ashkenazim, for some reason, have many more genetic disorders within their community than any other community in the entire world, Jewish or Gentile. And in the general population, it's just 1 in 345. That's why I gave a shiur in another place where I was Ashkenazim, and I explained to them it's important to get screening done, because if you catch the breast cancer at a lower stage, then it's much easier to treat it. Normally, if you found out too late, then unfortunately there's not much that you can do. Now, is there a mitzvah to have children if you have a genetic disorder? I made it bracha before, so I don't have to make it again. So it's very interesting. The Shulchan Aruch says that if you had a child who's a mamzer, a shoteh or katan. Shoteh is someone I don't know how, really to describe it, but it could be someone who has some sort of autism, which is normally a genetic disorder. They are mekayim the mitzvah of puruvu. However, if someone has a child who is a savis or elonit, someone who's infertile, then they do not they did not mekayim the mitzvah puruvu with this actual child. And not every person, like someone with Down syndrome, I don't think they can have children, but even if they do get married, but someone with autism, even if he doesn't get married, since theoretically you could have children, then you are mekayim the mitzvah of puruvu. There's an interesting shubha. I'm going to speak about this Marson syndrome a bit later, where someone asked him, does he have a mitzvah? He actually says that there is a mitzvah for these people, even though with Marfan syndrome there's a 50% chance that the child is going to have a genetic disorder. However, there are many poskim that they say no. This is, for example, Chromosomes Alpha. He writes, but it's very interesting. In order to fulfill a mitzvah asay, you don't have to lose all your money. You have to spend to 1/5 of your money in order to do a mitzvah. Say any mitzvah, if you have an etrog, you have to spend, you can't find it anywhere, so the chiyuv is up to 1/5, 20% of your money you have to spend. So the poskim say, what Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says, also the Sitzer Yezer, and Asher Weiss, and Moshe Sternbach also speaks about this. He says that this is so difficult, a person would be willing to, lose more than 20% of their fortune not to have a child who is ill. So therefore, there might not be a chiyuv puruvu on such a person to go through all this pain. But we're going to speak about nowadays, medically, there are ways for even couples who have genetic disorders to have healthy kids. That's going to be right at the end of the lecture. So how does the inheritance go over? We spoke from father or mother to child. There's something called dominant inheritance, recessive and X-linked. Dominant, remember we said we have 2 genes? Sometimes you only need one of them working. So if you inherited from your mother a 40 gene, let's say 40 number 1, the classical example is Tay-Sachs, there's no problem there. Why? Because the other gene is more powerful, and therefore he's going to be able to live properly. So this person is going to be a carrier, but they're not affected. However, some genes are called dominant, like with Marfan's. Marfan's is a dominant gene. So even if the mother has a correct gene, he's always going to have Marfan's. And sometimes the problem is on the X. So and we're going to explain because it's important to understand how it passes on to the next generation. So this is how it's gonna look like. We're gonna start off with the recessive. The guy in white is unaffected, the guy in grey is a carrier, and in black he has the actual disease. So this is a classical example. The woman here, one of her chromosomes which she got from her parents is affected. But since it's recessive, she doesn't have a problem. She's just a carrier. So when she passes it on to her kids, 2 of her kids are going to be carriers, and 2 of them are going to be healthy, but no one is going to, non-carriers, but no one's going to be affected. Okay? Now, what's the case? So, for example, if she has Tay-Sachs, so 2 of these, she's a carrier, she is not ill. 2 of her kids are also going to be carriers of Tay-Sachs. However, 2 of her kids are going to be non-carriers. Now, if, for example, she has, I'm going to skip this one, the father and the mother both have Tay-Sachs. So both
they're carriers. They don't have Tay-Sachs. They're carriers.
Sorry?
They couldn't have Tay-Sachs. You mean they're carriers. I know what you mean. I just want people not to make mistakes. They're carriers.
They're carriers of Tay-Sachs, but they're not affected by the disease. So these 2 women, they both are carriers of Tay-Sachs. The father and the mother, they're both recessive genes. So if we have this egg with this sperm, this child is going to be non-carrier. He's going to be not affected at all. It's just a lottery. 25% of their kids are going to be, if they have 8 kids, 2 of them are going to be statistically non-carriers. However, if it's this egg with this sperm, it's going to be a carrier, or this egg and this sperm is going to be a carrier. That means two of them are going to be carriers. However, if it's this egg and this sperm, they're going to have fully blown taste sacs. So that's why we say two recessive genes from a father and a mother, you have 1 in 4 chance that the child is going to become affected. You have 50% that they're going to be carriers and 25% that they're going to be healthy. I'm going to go to the dominant one now. This is the dominant one. This is like Marfan's. So the father has 1 dominant. It doesn't make a difference where if the mother has a healthy copy of the gene, because in 50% of the cases, 1 in 2 children are going to have this dominant gene as well. Okay? So that's dominant, recessive. Recessive, you need both parents in order to be affected, but you can pass on being a carrier. Dominant, you're going to have 50%, 1 in 2 children, statistically, are going to have the disease. And if they're both dominant or both recessive, now what's interesting here, what happens if there's a problem with the X? Like we said before, fragile X. Fragile X means that one of the X are problematic. So never, since the mother gives the X, she has 2 X's and the father has XY. A girl comes from the X of a mother or X of a father. So always you're going to have 50% of the girls. 1 will be a carrier, 1 will be a non-carrier. But for the boys, the father doesn't give the X. He only gives the Y. So that means he only has 1 X from the father, and that's going to be the only X one. And therefore, one of his kids are going to be healthy, statistically, and the other one is not going to be healthy. This we're going to see later. The Gemara talks about milah. For example, and this actually is why fragile X can cause a certain level of problems of development to autism. So very often a woman who has fragile X, the daughters are going to be healthy, but the boys are going to have autism. That's a sign that they have fragile X in the family, but the girls also might be a carrier, and like we said, fragile X could actually also cause a problem with her fertility as well.
Could you explain that again, why the boy is more susceptible to this?
Why?
Could you explain again why the boy has the chance but not the girl?
The father only gives a Y to the boy.
Right.
And so therefore, the X, one time, 50% you're going to have an X from the mother, 50% from X from the father. If it's a faulty gene, it turns from the woman is unaffected. Why? Because she has 1 healthy X. When he goes to the son, he only has the faulty X. He doesn't have a healthy X.
But the girl could get a faulty X too.
So the father never gives the X. If she gives a healthy X, so then he's fine. That's the XY.
Okay.
So in this case, for example, 1 X is always going to be affected because he doesn't have another X to overpower the other X like a woman does.
So you're saying an X...
This woman also got the X from her mother. But it's no problem because she got a good X from her father.
So if I understand you correctly, just see if I'm understanding this right. An X has the power to overpower the faulty X, but the Y cannot overpower the faulty X. That's what you're saying?
No, but what? Since the father, the
father gave the Y.
Always have another X from the father, and if it's a good X, then that's going to overcome the bad X.
But the Y cannot overcome the
Y,
bad
no,
X.
it's a different chromosome.
Right.
It's a different chromosome. Okay, I'm not going to go now into this, but there are 3 main ways. There are many variations of this. Now this is amazing, because the Gemara in Yevamot says that if you did a brit milah to 1, 2, or 3, with a machloket, if it's 3 or 4 children and they died, then you're not allowed to do milah. And the Gemara talks about not only a case of 4 children of 1 mother, even 4 sisters. 4 sisters of a family, and each son passed away, so therefore you're not allowed to do brit milah. But the Gemara says, ahayot mechaskut. And this is very interesting that we try and explain that maybe from a genetic point of view, this is talking about hemophilia. Hemophilia is an X-linked problem, and it normally goes only to the son and not to the woman. And it could be that it's talking about when they died, because they bled to death, because the blood could not coagulate afterwards. And this could be a way where Chazal already was speaking about a genetic problem within the Meiri says it's only from a woman. And the Rambam also explains that this could be X-linked. So how do we test for the actual genes? So there are different types of tests. I'm not going to go into it. It doesn't really make a difference. But sometimes you check the number of chromosomes. Sometimes you want to actually check the DNA. This is called FISH. This is a different type of, and much more. They're looking for point mutations of the actual DNA. And they're all different types of, it's getting much more. This is called microarray, where it's a much more thorough type of check that can really find point problems with the actual DNA, but I'm not going to go into that right now because I want to speak about and finish about genetic disorders within the community. So what's interesting from all the different communities in the world, non-Jews, the Ashkenazim have 93 certain problems which they have. The reason why I explain is because the more close-knit a community is, and they just marry with one another, so therefore the genetic disorders, they stay within the community, and then more and more people will become ill within that community. Soon I'm going to explain about the Persian community, which we did study 7 years ago, about this. At the Dekaf, but the Sitz Eliezer says that even though you're allowed to marry within the family, cousins, and so forth, but you should definitely be aware of the problems that it could have with them. So Doy Shavin, for example, is because he's a rabbi in Israel, but he had 3 or 4 children who had Tay-Sachs, and they decided to do Doy Shavin. They were actually, before all genetic testing came out, they were the first. However, it's important to realize that now, other places are much more developed in what they're doing, and they're trying to keep up. And also, Doy Shavin, they only deal with recessive genes, and they don't tell you if you're a carrier or not. And there is a lot of sense to this as well, because what happens is you just do a blood test, you're given a number, it's all done anonymously. If you want to get married, some people, they just get married and they don't do the tests, and it's only afterwards that they found out that there's a problem. But in the more orthodox communities, so they don't, before the shidduch is finalized, they'll do a Doy Shavin test. So what they'll test certain disorders, maybe 10, 15, 20 disorders, and they check if they're recessive, both of them recessive. So if, for example, the mother and the father are recessive, they'll tell them, don't get married. But they won't tell you who is actually the one who has this problem. I mean, the reason is that it's not really good to do genetic testing before you get married, because if you know you have a problem, you have to tell the Hatan or the Kala, because you have a problem. If you don't know, and we don't have to assume we have problems, then you don't have to tell. So this is a clever way of avoiding why it causes problems. In Israel for the last 10 years, there hasn't been one case of Tay-Sachs. It's a terrible, terrible disease. Very difficult for the family, and it was kind of eradicated because of Doy Shavin and other, even the non-religious might do genetic testing before the marriage to make sure that everything is okay. However,
it's done for any boy and girl that go out.
Sorry?
This Doy Shavin. It is across the board. Everybody does it.
Sephardim too?
Yeah. I'm going to talk about it. They don't. First of all, they don't check for dominant. They don't check for dominant genetic problems. So it doesn't mean that if you get, that there aren't other problems. Number one, and number two, for Sparadim, they don't do. I'll give you an example. Here's all. This I got this from Mount Sinai website. These are all the Ashkenazi. Or the main Ashkenazi ones, there's about 40. And Doy Shavin, the Ashkenazim, they only check about 20. For the Sfaradim, it's even worse. This is, for example, for the the Persian, then the Iraqi, and Kurdistan, you see how many different types of, it goes, down the bottom of the screen, and this is called all the North Africans. They have different types, the Moroccans, and this is for the Temanim, and we're talking about dozens of different, and they only check, 1, 2, they don't check as many. They are trying now because there have been the Rabbanim saying, listen, why should we go to you? You're not checking other diseases. So they are trying much more, but it doesn't mean that they don't cover everything. I don't know what they exactly do. I did say they should be kind of pressurized to tell and to find out with doctors and geneticists and statisticians in order to give a better service to the Sephardi community as well. For example, here in LA, they actually conducted 7 years ago, in 2017, they did genetic screening in the Persian Jewish community, a pilot study. It was Israeli investigators because of nearly 3 centuries of, they were completely isolated, what they could, they didn't marry out, Khalila, and therefore there were more, the gene pool was smaller, and therefore there were more problems. I can say I have this actual study if anyone wants them to send them to me. But for example, these are 4 different genetic problems, which is much higher within the Persian community. Again, this is like Tay-Sachs, which is recessive. Do you need both parents to be ill? I can send you by mail the actual study. I don't know who, I didn't have time to contact the actual, I did say that there was a website which deals with it with the Persian community. I don't know exactly how it goes into, from a practical point of view. I didn't manage to do that, but that's something which I would like to look into when I get more time. But they found, much higher, but sometimes it could be in the general population, it's 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000, where in the Persian community it could be 1 in 15 or 1 in 50. I can say, like I said, the actual
Could you explain
study.
these conditions?
Sorry?
Could you quickly explain these disorders, what they are?
It's a bit, disorders, it can be a blood disorder, it can be something to do with the cholesterol. I'll send you the best, it's a bit too long now to explain each one. I can send you afterwards.
Recommended that
I have quite a lot of information on it, and I wanted to go into it a bit more, but I didn't manage to.
Is it halakhically recommended that any boy and girl that go out, they should just go to a mumche, not Doriya?
Okay, so this is a great question which the Maggie is asking me. The problem is when you go to a normal screening test, they're going to tell you have this and you have that, and that's a problem. We don't want to know what problems you have, because otherwise, let's say we're going to cancel this shidduch. I know I have this problem, and I have to tell the other girl, because I know I have this problem already. Why test yourself genetically before getting married if you're going to, so to say, shoot yourself in the foot? There's no actual problem. A woman with Turner's, she knows she has a problem. She doesn't have a period. She's 20. She has to tell him in any case. She wants to find out. So they say you have Turner's. It's very rare that you know you have a genetic problem beforehand. If you know you have a genetic problem, this is going to affect your wife. Why would I want to marry my son or daughter with some of a genetic problem? They have to tell you, no, it depends how severe it is. So I can't tell people just to do general screening. So Doy Shavin is close screening. They don't tell you what you have. They just tell you you can get married or not. But the problem is they don't test enough for the stomach. So what we have to do is either find out, is there an organization that do like Doy Shavin just for the Persian Jews, or get Doy Shavin to do these extra tests specifically for the person. So in Israel, they're trying to do more, but they haven't done enough at the moment. But like I said, this is something I do want to work on a bit more and find out a bit more, because it's something which interests me, and I might be able to help the community at large as well. Tay-Sachs, for example, is 1 in 30. I want to finish, and then after we have some questions if people want to leave. Tay-Sachs is about 1 in 27 for Ashkenazi. In the general population, it's 1 in 250, but for Moroccan Jews, it's 1 in 100. So every illness, people say, oh, we don't have Tay-Sach. If you're Moroccan, you have much more chance of Tay-Sach. We used to think that Deutsch Shavim only for Ashkenazim. And that people have to realize this is not true, but we have to ask them to also test out for the Sfaradim, and I don't know exactly if they do enough on these things. Even with the Moroccan Jews, there's the Journal of Medical Genetics, they found out that there are 2 genes which are much higher amongst the Moroccan community than the general community. So this is for, I once gave a shiur to the Tunisians in Kisera Hamim, so I gave them the Tunisian rundown as well. So the Feinstein speaks about all the poskim say, should you check Tay-Sachs? All the poskim, virtually all the poskim say there's no problem with doing this genetic testing. Like I said, it's better to do it closed. There is no, why cause problems, or if you can solve the problem from not coming, it's much, much better. And this is, I'm going to finish. This is something amazing. This is an embryo, and this is called PGD. PGD is when they do biopsy of the embryo. Here, I'm very friendly with a clinic in Shaarei Tzedek. It's not going to work, unfortunately, because it's just using the... If you saw the video, it's really amazing. This is how you see. They actually, what they do, this is an embryo. They have had IVF treatment, and what they do is they take out one of the cells. And they check the DNA of that cell to see if it's a healthy baby or not a healthy embryo. If it's a healthy embryo, then they'll put it back in the woman. If it's not healthy, they won't use it. So this is in Israel it's free. In the States, it's going to cost you, a few $1,000s to do this. But it's definitely worthwhile if you don't want to have kids who are not well. So this is very important for Rabbanim. If Khalila, a couple comes to you and they say, listen, we have this genetic, their first, it could be the first or second child is a problem, and they did genetic screening. They say, Rabbi, we don't know what to do. We don't want to have more kids. If it's a recessive gene, it could be 1 in 4. It could be 3 kids on the row. It could be no kids because it's just, mazal. But what you can tell them is to do PGD. PGD, this is, what they do is they check the disease before it actually goes, put it back into the woman. The woman has to go through fertility treatment. So, for example, I had a question from LA. I just saw the email now. I'm not going to say who it is, but it's I'm not going to go into too much detail, but someone just had, let's say he had 2 boys or 2 girls, and he wanted to suddenly have a girl, or he wanted to have a boy. And what you can do is, theoretically, he's asked me, is there any way that I can have a boy or a girl? This is the only way. Sometimes fertility clinics will tell you other ways, but it's not 100%, it's only 60, 70%. And if you think you have 50% generally of a boy and a girl, they're just bringing it up by a few more percent. But PGD, what they do is they take out the cell, it's a biopsy, they check, is it XY or is it XX? If you want a boy, you do boy. Now this is real problematic, because you can check the color eyes, you can check, if you want a girl who's blonde and blue eyes, you can do that. Theoretically, you check all the embryos, you see which one has girl, blonde, blue eyes, but this is even ethically wrong, and they don't do it in America, they don't do it in UK, they don't do it in modernized countries. People who want to do it, they have to go to, I don't know, Hungary or Eastern Europe, and this is what they call, you're buying the baby. You want to order the baby like you do, you order the shopping, but this obviously, ethically, they don't do this. But there are certain cases where they do it for genetic testing. This is called for genetic testing. And in rare cases, every country is different if they want to have boys. So I had a question, big rabbi in Israel. He had only had 4 girls. His wife's approaching 40. He wants a boy, and in some communities, if you don't have a boy, it's really, really, it's really difficult. Someone told me on Shabbat, someone had 11 girls and 1 boy. And the girls were mucking around and causing problems, and he went to the boy and hit the boy. He said, "Why you hit me? The girls are..." I said, "Akol biglalcha, you know, it's your fault. Yeah, I had it until you came, I had to have all these girls." But sometimes, you know, it's difficult until you become mitzvah approval. It's not so simple. And very often I get these questions. So PGD is a way in Israel.
There's no shikvat zera levatala in this? I mean, they don't get rid of some...
Well, they use a condom with a hole, whatever, and also...
No. When they take this, some of it, they don't...
Yeah, but that's with any IVF treatment as well. And for lekayem mitzvah pruvu, that would be allowed. That would be allowed. First of all, they use some of the sperm, so it's not classical zera levatala. And even, for example, for doing a sperm test, you know, the poskim where it's not used, this is used. Even if it's not used, there isn't a problem because it's for pruvu, because he has boys or girls. But I don't want to go into, I haven't referred to the team.
Somebody who's sick, he needs treatment.
No, he's not saying it.
Yeah, this is for someone sick.
No.
If people want to have, like, you know, they want to have a boy, that's the only thing. You know, they don't want to have a girl, they want to have a boy. So they go to this, you know.
If they have boys and girls and they want to have a boy, then they won't let it. That'll be a bigger problem.
Somebody has only girls.
Only girls. So there's no zera for 2 reasons. One is for the mamash pruvu. They want a boy. What's more than that? This is why I spoke to the Yitzhak Kollel about this recently. Why is it? Because of Ovadia, it seems that he only talks about someone who has no children for 1 child. So I told him, I don't understand. Ovadia says in another tshuva, this is in my infertility shiur, I'll just say very quickly, he says that if someone only has boys or only has girls, he would be allowed to still marry another woman in order to bring the other boy or girl, because as long as he hasn't fulfilled the mitzvah pruvu, he would be allowed even to marry another wife. So I told Rabbi Yitzchak that I want to apply this also to fertility, because it seems, it's not clear that Rabbi said for fertility treatment if you have no kids. But once you have 1 kid, no. But he told me this is incorrect, and as long as you don't have a boy and a girl, it would still be mutar, all these problems with zera levatala. So here it definitely would be mutar. In Israel it works.
And he said it even for choosing the
but it's not really zera levatala, because they use a condom with a hole in it, so not all the zera actually is taken out. So
You know, the Israel have a normal tashmish, and they could have children, but the children is a boy or girl. But they are doing the process of perurvu. There is nothing to be matter there. What are matter? Zera levatala. If somebody cannot have children through the biyah, then you are matter. Over there is a
yeah, but still, if you have sick children, I had a question like this. I had a woman who had 8. I had a woman who had 2 kids, suddenly 8 miscarriages. So I told her, listen, just use contraception. I had a boy and a girl. I said, just use contraception, and that's it. You know, what can you do? 8 miscarriages in like a few years. I sent her to the best professor in Israel, but I explained to him, in Israel, in the States, so many miscarriages, that's it. What can you do? We'll adopt, or we'll go to a sperm bank. So the doctors aren't so good at that because they don't have these questions. In Israel, no way, we want to have kids. That's why they're so good in fertility as well. But everyone wants to have kids, and it's not as good as the States. But for example, if we come at miscarriages, some of the doctor professors in Israel are world leaders in this because they have much more experience. I sent them to the best professors. Then Professor Kapp is an English guy actually, and he said, I don't know what to do. Try PGD, which doesn't always help. So then I had this problem. I have a boy and a girl. How can we do PGD? So I went to Rabbi he lives near me, and I asked him this question. And he said, with a halachic condom, and he said that it will be okay. If there's halacha lemaaseh, I'll go much more into it if you want to speak to me.
It is halacha lemaaseh a lot. I mean, like, people come to you and say, you can't do it.
That what?
You have a few girls, you want to have a boy.
So I told you wouldn't be able, according to the one, even if you have a boy and a girl, you could still do it with a condom with a hole. The second it has a hole in it, some of us goes into the body, and the rest comes out.
But from what I understand, to make sure it's a boy, even the sperm that they use, part of it, they have to. So you're saying this is not the
What's the message?
Are you saying from now, that's okay. Very often people ask me, they say, Rabbi, I have in a sperm bank, I have frozen sperm, and now I'm 45, what do I do with it? There's no Zera Batala. The whole problem, this is just interesting.
No problem. There's no problem.
Okay, we'll speak about this. We'll speak this about
Meanwhile, all Constitution says is also not be done. Meanwhile, he says.
Sure.
I have a question. Years ago, they tried to select Y sperm and X sperm. And doing this IVF for the one who wants the boy, just put the Y inside the egg. Okay?
Well, you can't do that. There's something called...
No, listen.
Okay, sure.
Let me finish. Years ago, that was about 20, 25 years ago, they started to do that. Okay.
Dr. List is in this.
Is a urologist.
With
Is
ICSI
urologist,
you're talking
surgeon.
about?
So 20, 25 years ago, this was invented. Okay? People who wants the boy, they say, okay, so I use Y with X, and then people who wants girl use 2X and make girl. Okay? Later on, about 10 years ago, there was an article about this 20 years past that they did this study. They put Y and X. And they find significantly higher percentage of these children that now they're grown up and they're at age 20, 25, they have seizure, which was very significant. And then I heard at that time, Rabbanut in Israel made this one, because they said, no, there's no way to do that, and it's asur. So they made it asur at that time. Okay. Now, when you're talking about this PGD, it's the same, almost the same thing, because as soon as you form this blast, make it 2, 4, 8, 10, this one, okay? At that point, there's a life. Now, if you do the biopsy from this, and they find out, and there's some kind of congenital problem, then you have to remove this blast, bring it out. So you're back doing miscarriage. So again, it's this lawsuit also.
This is what...
So what you have to do, I think, personally, years before a boy or a girl, they decide to get married at age 18, 17,